call the April 18th Board of Education meeting to order. It is 6:30 p.m. If you could all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have any additions or items for consideration?
Yeah, I'd just like to wish McKinley Craven, who is going to present tonight, happy birthday.
I need a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll move. I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting on March 9th, 2023.
Second.
Any discussion?
I had asked Jody to correct the spelling of the name of one of the public commenters. That's all better.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That brings us to our district presentations. So I'd like to first welcome McKinley Craven for the FFA public speaking presentation. First. I'm going to just slide back here.
So my name is Johanna Buzzard. I'm the Hamilton FFA advisor. Thank you guys for taking the time to listen to both McKinley and Steph give their presentations. Give you just a little bit of background on that. They've made it through 2 rounds of their prepared public speaking and extemporaneous speaking, and they'll be competing at the state convention in May. So this is another chance for them to practice their speeches, and please feel free to ask them lots of hard questions, follow-up, to give them more practice. Good luck.
35% of all farmers struggle with depression. 28 farmers and other people employed in the agricultural industry nationwide die by suicide each and every day. 45% of farmer and rancher suicides in the past 15 years were committed by people ages 65 and older. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, farmers and ranchers in the U.S. are nearly 2 times more likely to die by suicide than any other occupation. About 3 years ago, an uncle of mine, a cattle farmer, attempted to take his own life. The weight of feeling like a burden and that he was no longer useful because of his age and related health issues led him to believe that suicide was his only option. This is the case with many farm families who are reluctant to ask for help because of the stigma attached to asking for mental health help. As a result, our family had to sell the cattle he raised because my aunt could not run the farm herself. Farmers cannot become another statistic. My name is McKinley Craven, and I proudly represent the Hamilton FFA chapter. Let me begin by expressing my reasoning behind choosing this heavy topic to discuss. I've always had a passion for helping others and lending a hand when needed, and sometimes when it isn't. I'm driven by a feeling of fulfillment when I positively impact somebody else. In my work-based learning experience, a class offered in my school's ag department, I was digging around trying to find jobs in agriculture that I could actively see my future self doing. While ag has been and forever will be an impactful part of my life, I struggled to find a career that I could see myself pursuing. The field of psychology has always been something I found fascinating. My ag teacher and I racked our brains about career fields where I could tie agricultural and psychology together. We found ourselves talking about the epidemic of farmer suicides and farmer mental health concerns and how this number has been increasing. As someone who struggles with her own mental health and has been in a tough spot before, I felt as though that I could relate to the feelings that these farmers were having. While the circumstances between my struggles and a farmer and their family struggles are completely different, it's still something I wanted to know more about and work to figure out a solution to. We all know farmers, and some of us may be farmers, and I'm pretty sure we can agree on one thing. This being that farmers are proud people who know the true meaning behind physically working hard. Individuals engaged in agricultural production experience unique occupational stressors and negative life events that threaten their mental health. This includes, but is not limited to, inconsistent work schedules, fluctuating market prices, uncertain government policies, and unpredictable environmental conditions and weather. Farmers and ranchers are at increased risk of suicide when you consider the demographic, environmental, and occupational circumstances that differ from the rest of the population. In the United States, the average age of principal operators, farmers, and ranchers is 58 years old, and more than 1.94 million of those are male. Farmers and ranchers commonly report health conditions such as chronic pain, hearing loss, and other permanent disabilities, which may also increase the risk of suicide by feeling as though they are no longer useful. I recently had the opportunity to meet with Kate Downs, a former FarmNet consultant. FarmNet is a helpline for farmers in a time of crisis. Whether it be a financial or mental health issue, FarmNet has consultants ready to help. Kate was a mental health consultant. She took on cases to meet with farmers to go over how they were feeling and the possible reasons as to why they felt that way. There's such a stigma in the farming community when it comes to asking for help. One of the things Kate and I discussed was how difficult the initial reaching out can be and ways to make the farmers feel more comfortable doing so. A way FarmNet helped this process out was having the consultant go to the farm or home instead of the farmer going to an office. This is not only so that the farmer and consultant develop a relationship, but so the consultant can see the farm firsthand. Kate said she could tell a lot of the farmer's state of mind by the state of their farm. She said a majority of her work was making sure the farmers knew they could still be the hard-working, hard-shell farmers everyone thinks they are, but all while taking the time to mentally assess themselves and be okay to continue their work. With the developed stigma that comes with asking for help, the mindset farmers have developed goes along the lines of, well, my arms are not cut off, so I have to keep going. This is most definitely something I know we all admire, but when do we draw the line? Yes, all limbs may be intact, but that doesn't mean that the internal battle they could be experiencing is not real. We need to normalize asking for help within the farming and agricultural community. Dr. Julie Burton is a professor at SUNY Morrisville in the Human Services Program and the director of their Human Services Institute. For many years, Dr. Burton worked as a psychologist and hosted an award-winning workshop for farm families on stress management and change. When I met with Dr. Burton, she talked about the effects of this workshop. She, along with her team, met with farm families who are struggling to attend a mental health wellness workshop on the same day and to meet with a counselor. By meeting other farming families with similar mental health struggles, it helped to show them that they were not the only ones struggling, and with that came the realization that asking for help is not a sign of weakness. As I said before, 3 years ago, my family faced the reality of mental health challenges for farmers directly. My uncle attempted to take his own life, and my aunt was the one to find him in this state of distress. The weight of feeling like a burden and that he was no longer useful because of his age and related health issues led him to believe that suicide was his only option. And sadly, he was not the only farmer who felt or currently feels this way. Because he did feel this way and fell victim to the stigma of not asking for mental health help, our family not only had to lose someone that meant so much to us, but the farm we lost was something my uncle was extremely proud of. I met with psychologist Travis Hall, who's on the board for both FarmNet and the New York Center for Agricultural Medicine and Health. Travis also works as a psychologist at his own practice. A lot of what Travis and I talked about was what could be done to help mitigate the stigma around farmer mental health. Travis used to work with the Veteran Service Program, where each active duty member is matched with a veteran to talk to. Travis believes that a system like this could help our farmers, but this too has its risks. Many of the older generations of farmers and ranchers may have coped in ways that aren't healthy, such as overdrinking, drug use, and avoidance. The same thing could potentially happen when matching current farmers with retired ones. With the help of a licensed psychologist behind the scenes, Travis sees this becoming a great tool to help minimize the stigma and issue of suicide. Diving deeper and learning more about the mental health struggles and suicidal ideation among farmers has expanded my respect and love for the agricultural industry and those who work within it. Being able to tie my love for this industry and my longing to help others into my future career is something that I cannot wait to get started with. A quote I find so valuable is this: "Asking for help is never a sign of weakness. It's one of the bravest things you could do, and it could save your life." This quote is exactly what I hope to bring into the agricultural community by pursuing a career in the psychology field. Thank you. Are there any questions?
So I'm wondering, as you prepare for this field, what skills beyond what would typically go into psychological training do you think would be important for someone to develop, someone like you who wants to specifically target your help toward a community in the agriculture community?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think what I'm doing now with FFA and just being involved with the agriculture community is gonna help me, because I kinda know I'll have the training of a psychologist, but I'll also be able to know, like, I'll know firsthand what these farmers are well, not firsthand, but I'll know more than what a psychologist would know now, and I think that experience will just help me better relate to them on a different level.
How do you think you can help get farmers and their families to these types of workshops and sessions that you spoke of?
I think everyone just kind of has to normalize the, like saying that struggling with your mental health is okay, and it's not something that only you are going through. And I think once the older generation kind of realizes that it's okay to ask for help and it's okay to not be okay, and that there are like places for them to go and get this help, I think we just kind of have to work on normalizing that and making sure that they know that it is okay to go to these things and attend these meetings.
Are there already group spaces that you could access that could bring this to farmers, as opposed to having to go to individual farms or having them come to you?
That's a great question. I know FarmNet and NICAM both have, they have websites, they do like ads on like the radio and stuff, and so people have that phone number available to them, and they do like host workshops and stuff, and other like human services institutes have done workshops before.
Thank you very much.
Good job. Good job.
So to put it in perspective, McKinley's was a prepared public speech, so she got to choose any topic in agriculture she wanted to and prepare a 6 to 8 minute speech. Steph has qualified for extemporaneous speaking, which means an hour before the contest, students go and they choose 3 topics out of a hat. They pick one topic that they feel the most confident about, and then they have a half of an hour to prepare a 5 to 7 minute speech.
4 to 6.
Sorry, a 4 to 6 minute speech. They can take materials in with them, like books, pamphlets, brochures, those kind of things. They can use up to 15 minutes on the computer.
20 minutes, 10 minutes on the computer, 20 minutes on book, or things that you have.
If they want to. They don't have to use the computer if they don't want to. So I gave Steph a topic about 45 minutes ago now, and this would be her extemporaneous speech.
By 2050, the world population will have reached 9 billion people, which will cause a 60% increase of food needed each year. Let me say that again. 60% food increase each year. Currently, 55% of the food produced each year goes toward human consumption, 36% of it towards livestock consumption, and 9% of it used for fuel and fuel additives. How are we expected to feed that many people by 2050? Today, I'd like to talk about advancements in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics in agriculture, also known as STEM. STEM is our past, present, and future, and can help us solve this problem. 2,000 acres of farmland is lost each day due to cities, roads, and construction. We need to preserve the land that we have left. With the help of new advancements in science, soil tests provide an accurate assessment of the soil's fertility, which gives the farmers an understanding of what crops would be beneficial towards their crops that they like to plant that year. Technology has taken over many jobs in farming, but it has also made new jobs for people. Take drones, for example. Drones spray fertilizers on crops, inspect lands, and aerial surveillance. Even though that takes away farmers' jobs, someone has to teach those farmers how to use those drones. As much as some of us don't like to admit it, especially me, math is in our everyday lives, especially in farming. Farmers have nutritionists for animal agriculture. They help determine how much feed is being used to feed each cow and what the percentage of crops that they need for each cow and what kind of cow that they use it for. According to the Ag Literacy Foundation, financial helpers help farmers determine how many seeds are needed to be planted each year and how much it will cost for that year. STEM is so beneficial in so many ways and is becoming so important with sustaining the food system. STEM is our past, present, and future. Thank you. Are there any questions?
she give you?
So she gave me how does STEM like impact the future of agriculture.
How do you figure out how long your speech should be for the duration of time it should be? Meaning like when you're writing your speech ahead of time, like how are you able to keep in mind how long it needs to be to get to the time?
Okay, yeah. So I've kind of had so much practice with it. I can kind of like make bullet points. I just have a lot of bullet points on my cards, and I kind of have like once I have a little stack about 6 to 8 cards, I kind of have an understanding of how much time I'm going to use there then. So I'll have like around 3 minutes with cards, and then a lot of my background information I've read over past like information that I've had to do research on to know a lot. I have to know a lot about a lot of different topics, just so I'm ready and know what I'm going to do. So just kind of practicing it just gives me an understanding of how much time I'm going to be at.
Do you have like a go-to resource that's usually like your first stop?
Yeah, my binder. The very first time I did it was at districts, and I had a binder of at least 50 things on there. Just about it was drones, advancements in technology, how that is beneficial to smaller farms, contour farming, just a lot of like side facts that are not good to know for just any speech.
If I can ask you to talk, like, a question about your topic. A lot of it seems like solving a lot of these problems, the burdens get placed on farmers to kind of resolve these things, and you brought up some interesting things.
Right.
I'm wondering what are some things that you think other people should be doing or changing or thinking about the dire circumstances that aware us we don't change? Are there
Right.
changes we should be making in our daily lives?
Yeah, so currently right now 1.9 billion acres of land is taken away each year. Just like I said, 2,000 acres of land. So a lot of that, most of that is agricultural land. So a lot of those ways that we can do is in cities, we can implement urban agriculture and start new FFA programs or agriculture programs in the classroom. Just as yourself, if you're kind of living in a place like Hamilton, it's a good thing to just start growing a garden or like buying things locally and just kind of supporting your community.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you, and we wish you both the best at the convention, along with the other members of the FFA that I'm sure are competing as well. Tonight we have some recognition. I'd like to turn the program over to Bill Miller. He's part of the New York State School Boards Association, Area 5 Director, so that he can do a presentation.
First off, I'd like to thank you for inviting me to be here the same night as the Voice of God. Now, if you don't
They don't know
what
about
we're
that yet.
talking about, is David Little, and all our conventions was like the Wizard of Oz. He was behind the screen, and he was doing all the announcing, and somebody nicknamed him the Voice of God, because that's what it sounded like. So, I'm very proud to be here with you, David.
Same here, pal, same here.
What I'm here tonight for is to give you a plaque and to recognize your school and your students for their initiative that they took when they did the baskets, for 23 local farmers, I believe. And they put them together and they took it upon themselves to figure out how to get them there and everything else. And, you know, there's so many different levels you guys could be proud of yourselves with. You know, for you personally, knowing that what you did was a good deed for the farmers, your community. You don't realize how much something like that draws the community and into the school and makes them understand what your kids are doing, and you know how well that you're prepared and how you do it. The farmers who received these baskets, you know, knowing how they felt that, wait a minute, these kids are doing this for us. You know, we're supposed to be feeding you, you're feeding us. So, you know, there's just so many different levels that this whole plays out on, And I just want to say on behalf of Bob Schneider, our executive director, and Peggy Zogby, who's the president, they're very happy to be able to do this. These are brought to our attention through articles that we see in the paper. Nobody nominates anybody. They just go out and they find these articles and they say, let's look through them and see which ones really make a difference. And this article made a big difference. So that's why I'm here on behalf of New York State School Boards to present this plaque and to make you feel that, you know, you're in a special group of school districts and kids and everything that you've been doing. So I don't know who's here to receive the plaque.
And we're gonna have the two that just spoke, and
Okay.
their advisor, Johanna Bodger.
All right, and I know we want pictures because
Yeah.
they want to send it back. Now this, it's called Culture of Caring. And we wanted to come up with something along, you know, because we have the champion banner that we do. And that's for something entirely different. We were looking at how can we recognize students themselves and what they do. And so we came up with the Culture of Caring, and everybody that's received it loves it. They think it's great. We ask you to proudly display this somewhere in your school so your whole community could see it, and they won't forget what these kids have done and spent their own time and energy to do. So if we could have them come up and we'll do a picture. Now this says Culture of Caring. The NYSBA recognition is presented to Hamilton Central School District for the empathy, care, and thoughtfulness shown by your FFA chapter students by packing, delivering, and presenting Thank You Farmer care packages. Your contribution to a positive district and community culture is to be commended and celebrated. Thank you.
So you get that.
Thank you for inviting me. There's a box. I'll take this.
Thank you, Mr. Miller.
Thank you.
You're welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Tonight's about celebrating our students. And to continue that, we also have David Little here from Rural Schools to present another award.
Take a picture for them when we get the kids up there.
Sure.
Well, thanks. With your kind permission, I've got a couple of things that I'd like to comment on. I love being here with you. I've been involved in schools, obviously, since I was 5 in one form or another. And the chances to be back in school and see the wonderful things that kids do get fewer and farther between the older you get, so it's wonderful to be up here. It's true that I, for years, have done the announcing at the NYSBA convention and other places, ballparks and radio and TV and all that kind of stuff, but I'll just tell you a quick funny story. Last fall, I spent a month on dialysis because I ignored a gallbladder attack so long that it shut everything down around it. The way my nephrologist put it was, you don't need your gallbladder, but you need its neighbors, and you waited until it had poisoned the whole neighborhood. Right? And while I was in this drug-induced state, having this whole thing, I actually had a dream where God appeared at the bedside, and all he said was, you know, I'm going to need that voice back. So someday I'll need that voice back. But the real thing I want to say is this was very cool because every summer at the Rural Schools Association Summer Conference in Cooperstown, we have a luncheon on Monday where the statewide winners present their extemporaneous and prepared remarks, the two categories. And we give each of those statewide winner a $1,500 scholarship, right? And I just want to encourage the two of you that I've been doing that for 10 years now, and nobody has been any better than you guys are. So, and I'll just say that for a prepared remarks, we've had really interesting, it's the most popular thing at the conference, because everybody wants to see the kids, right? And they're wonderful. When they do it, the ones who come are wonderful. And it's the Otis Saga, and it's kind of glorious. It's a fun time, you know, to be there. But we've had food waste, worldwide hunger. We've had a lot of different, we've had the decline of the agricultural industry. I know great things for our association's advocacy as a result of those things. Like in the 1970s, did you know that this state had 17 million acres in agricultural production, and now it has 7? Right? I mean, look, I can use that kind of information, you know, in trying to urge policies to be set and programs to be run to try and counter that type of thing. So what you're doing, it's important, and you're good at it. So keep it up. Thank you for letting me mouth off before I get to the point of why I'm here. We also run a statewide student video contest, and the reason for running it is that we wanted to encourage technical expertise and creativity among students statewide, but we also wanted to encourage some introspection about what's great about your school and what's great about how your school contributes to the community, or what's unique about your community. We wanted to try and highlight what's good about rural communities and the schools they host. And so for several years now, we've run this statewide video contest. It's open to all rural school members, but you should, rural districts, the district is the member. And one of the things I think that is amazing about what's happened here is that that includes all BOCEs. BOCEs are members of ours. So you've got seniors who are in BOCEs tech programs specifically to do this type of thing, competing with local districts, right? And you've got huge schools. Don't ask me why, but Levittown is a member of ours. I think they just like what we do on school funding issues. But Levittown could not be less rural if you dreamed one up, right? It's the first suburb in America. It's right outside of New York City, and the distance between the houses are about that much, right? And Levittown's huge, all right? And they compete in this contest. And despite that, the grand prize runner-up in the whole state is you guys. There were, first off, well, I'll give up. We should give a round of applause to Astrid, who is their advisor, because they obviously didn't do this by themselves. So we'll give her. And I love the fact that she's still not here, right?
The students are here.
All 3 of them?
Well, no, she's at a meet.
Right, that's what I heard when I came in, and I love it, because I actually had my older son, my wife hates when I say this, so don't rat me out, okay? But everybody says their kids are their pride and joy. I've got one of each. Okay? And the older one, who's now the managing attorney for Salino Law in Rochester, but he competed in everything, he won everything, and I actually had to go one night to accept an award for him, and when I said, "You can't make this," he said, "I don't have time to accept awards, I'm too busy earning them." So I'll go every day of the week to try and do that type of thing. So I love the fact that she's too busy doing something else to be able to come and simply accept the award. But you're her sister, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so each of the students involved in this, the grand prize runner-up, prize is $750. So I'm gonna trust you to give her $250. So I'll just ask that you come up and I'm gonna take a stab at it. It's Amelia Morkevicius.
Oh,
Is that
yeah,
what it
that's
is?
right.
I did have some coaching, but I had to remember, so if you could come up, I'll make sure that we've got. I gotta make sure that I've got the right checks with the right certificate, so hang on just a second.
And then just stay out from the page.
Yeah, that would be good. Okay, so there's your, so thank you, congratulations, that was great work. And Abigail Hagos. Now, thanks.
Ingrid, you want to come up and we'll do it? First Oxford start.
Yeah.
It's okay, Ingrid and Oxford, gets confusing.
And I just want to tell you, give us a little bit of time and then go, it's just rsany.org to get to our website. The website's being revamped, but as soon as that's done, the winning videos will be up, including this one.
Can you guys move this way a little? Get right in the center of the backdrop. All right, ready, smile. 1, 2, 3. Let's do one more. Beautiful. And do one more for you. This is, sorry.
Thank you.
Are we watching it?
Yeah, are we watching their entry? Right?
Can we?
Are we watching
Sure, it's
it?
prepared if you want to watch it.
Yeah.
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 Awesome, that's even better.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna sit here, because otherwise I can't see. This is not the Better Business.
No, that's what we were saying. Those were the ones we'd seen before.
Yeah, well, sure, this is a different one.
Yes. No, I'm thrilled with this here.
This is our home, Hamilton, New York, established in 1795 by Elisha Payne. 228 years later, the town remains. Samuel Payne, his brother, founded Colgate University, the center of our little universe.
One of the first things that I loved about Hamilton in this section of the year is that I always helped me with it. Like, once you get further west, like, you don't see the old style of America. The second thing is how community oriented it is. I really love that fact of it all. And I love the library. I love everyone at the library. There were a lot of really fun things about it. I guess if you could do those with me.
Like I said, I'm not originally from here, so I've had a lot of nice things about here. It's a beautiful area. Sounds good.
However, there's no denying that there are some setbacks to living in a small town.
Only negative thing is that when college students leave, sometimes the village does shut down a lot.
The decline of small-town America means that our community and culture is at risk of extinction. But we are a resilient community that will actively fight to find solutions.
I think this is more things.
A lot of the things that you are bars and restaurants, and I think we need to branch out and realize that help see, help draw you small businesses. I think it's vibrant and alive and well, and growth.
Our community is unique because we're close-knit, resilient, and welcoming. Traditions such as the annual Christmas tree lighting at the farmers market and the chocolate trade festival keep Hamilton alive and remind us what a gift this town is. Colgate students and businesses may come and go, but as long as we preserve what really matters, our community will remain.
Thank you so much much for sharing.
It was cool coming into town because I knew places from.
Thank you, Mr. Little.
You bet, well done.
We appreciate you being here this evening. That brings us to our teacher presentations. More time to celebrate what we do here in school. So if Mrs. Merrill would like to come forward, I don't see it.
She can't.
I was gonna say.
I'm presenting. So I am, this summer Abby, Riley and I worked on responsive classroom. And this is approach to learning that is offers valuable opportunities for children to practice social, emotional, and academic skills that they can carry throughout the day. So we focused heavily on morning meeting and establishing an environment where kids felt safe and welcome and loved in the classroom. So our morning meeting actually began outside the door, and I know some of our students have been part. And it starts with a personal greeting. So every student who walks through our door, we say good morning with their first name and offer them a handshake, high five, or hug. And we've been doing this for years, and I think even Dalton, you guys, do you remember doing your handshake, high five, and hug? And when they walk in, there is a message on the board for them, so they know exactly what they are expected to do. So after the door greeting, they come in, they'll organize, and they'll read a positive message on the board. And so this is just one that I had today. It said, welcome learners. Today is Tuesday, April 18th. Yesterday we discussed the class rule of allowing others to have joy. What is something you like to do that brings you joy? I like to go on crunchy leaf walks. Write on a sticky note something that brings you joy and post it below. Don't forget to turn in your forms for music and meet at the rug at 8. And so it just allows them a time to talk together, start conversations, and have a soft start to the morning. And then we're able to share, and we find a lot of similarities with each other that way. And then we meet at 8 o'clock, we'll meet in a circle. And during morning meeting, there's a lot of different things that we can do, but we do try to have a group activity. Sometimes they're quick, thumbs up, this way, down. Other times we do activities or games that promote. Sometimes you lose, and sometimes you have to, and we can talk about how we lose. Well, sometimes we just do an activity that is fun. And we try to laugh and have a good time in the morning before we start our academics. It is only about 10 minutes long, but it is my favorite 10 minutes of the day. And it's good, it allows them to be kids for a little bit before we get into the rigor of the day. So there's a couple of things that we need to do to prepare the children. That involves organization and respect and trust building activities. And it takes a long time to build those activities. So we looked into a lot of ways that we can play games and learn through play rather than just having a list of rules. And it fits nicely into our restorative circles because sometimes our morning meetings have to be a little serious if something occurred on the bus or there was a conflict in the hallway on the way to the bus. It just allows us to have that environment already placed, the rules in place, and our students are able to have a successful start to the day, learn how to let something bad go, and then bring that joy back into the classroom. We also end the day with a closing circle. It's a little more difficult because of our schedule. A lot of our students leave at different times because of our music block, but we like to celebrate accomplishments. We have something called the Mighty Duck in 5th grade, and at this point in the year, they're able to give each other Mighty Ducks. And so that's just something mighty that you see in somebody. It's not an academic mighty, it's internal, and they are coming up with the most beautiful and inspiring awards, like being brave, going to your brave space, and you don't like to talk in front of people, and you shared your writing with me, and I appreciate you for doing that, and I know that's difficult. So it's just creating this environment of safety, love, and teamwork that they hopefully bring on to them as they move into the new school. So that's what we did. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. We'll bring us into the consent agenda. For those of you that presented, we hate to see people leave, but this is the time that if you would like to sneak out, if you'd like to stay, you are more than welcome to two. The consent agenda is 4.1 through 4.4. I need a motion to approve the consent agenda as recommended by the speaker.
One second.
Any discussion on the treasurer's report, consideration of claims, transportation report, or cafeteria report? All those in favor?
Aye.
That brings us to the community participation. Please remember that we do have rules regarding how long people are up here, and we would prefer if people would state their name. And I would like to read a statement before we allow anybody to the table, and I'm checking online to see if there's any statements. The district and Board of Education are fully aware of the serious concerns surrounding the boys' basketball program and wish to thank everybody who has reached out to share their thoughts. This situation involves multiple staff members and students and is being actively investigated. Board policies 2044 and 0015 require the public comments made during the board meeting to remain civil and refrain from making direct references to individuals. In order to ensure the decorum at the meeting, the board is asking everybody to refrain from commenting on this issue tonight. Any discussion will be taken place in executive session as it relates, and there will be no decisions made this evening. If you have any thoughts you would like to express directly to the board, please email the BOE at hamiltoncentral.org. I open the floor.
I wasn't planning on speaking tonight, but after listening to Ms. Bernard, I think she mentioned that STEM was past, present, and future. I'd like to know what kind of STEM offerings Hamilton currently has. Nobody knows, or does Hamilton offer any sort of STEM? I guess that's what I'm asking. Yeah, we, so there's technology through, Mr. Alsup is doing a robotics class and has a robotics team that's competing. We have Lego robotics that are being used throughout the elementary when teachers wish. So that is being infused throughout the curriculum. Robotics is the whole STEM curriculum then? What are you saying? Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. You're welcome.
We will move to the personnel section, 7.1. I need a motion to approve Grace Riley as a substitute to the substitute list as recommended by the administrative team and superintendent.
I'll move.
Second.
Discussion would be in executive session. All those in favor? I need a motion to approve the recommendation of the committees on special education and preschool special education.
Move.
Second.
Discussion will be in executive session. All those in favor? That brings us to the policies and regulations section. This is first reading for policies. We've got 0013, 2040, 2043, 8201.
Corey, do you want to start with the big one? You did a lot of work on that.
Sure, so the diversity, equity, and inclusivity in education policy, we went through a lengthy process to prepare this. This comes from a lot of sources, so we had sample policies I think all of us saw early from NISBA and from BOCES. We also had a meeting with some representatives in the community who are experts in different areas relate to this type of work. We put together this policy based on that input. It's gone back and forth with an ad hoc inclusivity committee. The main point of this document is that it creates it formalizes that committee and gives it some certain abilities and some authority to conduct, to do certain things within the school and help make sure that we're on the right track in this regard. I think our goal here wasn't necessarily to say that we're gonna perfect everything in the school, but that we're gonna start looking at things not from, not necessarily that we're gonna root out every individual instance of bias, but that we're looking at framing our structural and the structure of the school and the systems in the school. So we're looking using an equity lens to review those things, the policies that we have. And then we have this committee that can help kind of be a double check for all the blind spots that anything we might have. So that's kind of the intent here. Also, it does seem like a policy that once we get that committee formalized and in place, may itself be areas where they can suggest revisions as they can with any other policies. So I wouldn't be surprised to see some revisions based on what that policy itself sees as what they need as they start to do their work as well.
Corey, you want to touch on what the regulation would look like too? There's going to be an attached regulation.
Yes, the regulation would lay out in more defined terms a lot of the stuff that we want to put all in that policy about what we would call, you know, all the different terms that are used here. What is diversity? What is equity? What is inclusion? What are the different categories and identities that are being protected, and how do we define those and different aspects of those things? We wanted that to be in a regulation rather than a policy because we wanted that to be more fluid and more able to change as we continue to learn and grow. And so that's something that as a regulation superintendent and his staff have the ability to evolve that quicker than we can in policy. Also.
I don't want to think Corey put a lot of work into this policy, so thank you for that.
Yeah.
And that regulation isn't written yet.
No, but you'll have it by the next month.
And the second reading is next month.
Yep.
So, question, so with so any like term lengths, new members joining the committee, things like that, will that all be included in regulation, or how will that process work?
Yeah, I think we're at this point kind of leaving it up to the superintendent, and that might also be something that I think the committee itself can help figure out. One thing I don't think we came down on in one way or another is should a board member be part of this committee? Should it be chaired by the superintendent? We have it chaired by the superintendent, but that's something that we could also, you know, it's not something that has to be set in stone, but maybe the committee sees somebody else chairing it as more, a more productive thing, right? And the superintendent serving as a member, or having a board member or not having a board member, right? And whatever they feel as a committee would be the most useful way to go. So hopefully when that committee is established, we'll have some more back and forth on those kind of things as well.
So we also had homebound instruction, which is just a quick little update and just
Yeah.
on the days.
And those revisions were made by librarians. Those revisions were suggested by labor relations.
Yeah.
It's just section 4, and it's just moving from, it just changes the number of days that those could be required for
The
students.
state has mandated some changes to homebound instruction.
And then with regular board meetings, it has to do with video conference. Bill, do you want to kind of speak to, you know, what that is all about?
Yeah, so that's a labor relations recommendation. So if you're gonna video conference board meetings, there's some policy restrictions that need to be included to be able to do that. For board members who can't make meetings that are off-site, video conferencing in, making that allowable and making it accessible to the public. So wording in there from labor relations.
Yeah, whereas before we had, if we did a video conferencing, we had to also make that public space where anybody can come and join, and we don't have to.
And the big thing with that.
But we have to specifically reference this 103A, right, in order to not do that? Isn't that what the email we got, that you have to specifically reference, which you have? It just-
Yeah, we have a picture.
Oh, yeah, it was one or the other,
One or the
right?
But
Yeah.
with this, say this morning I tested positive for COVID,
Mhm.
now I can video conference. in.
Right.
Before we had to have, what, 24-hour notice and post where you are.
Well, and your location had to be open to the
Your
public
location to be open to the
in order to
public.
be, yeah.
And we also, this also allows us to, we still would have to have an in-person quorum.
Yeah.
That would have to be,
Right.
the quorum would have to take place in the same location, so
Okay.
we couldn't just all be remote.
Now, corresponding to this policy, we had to change our minutes policy to reflect it. And that's why that's in the regulation too.
Now, if there were to be a board member that for childcare reasons or family care reasons always had to Zoom in.
That's one of the caregiving
allowable.
responsibilities, is one of those.
So it doesn't have to be a rare instance. It could be that there's a board member who the only way they can participate is if they Zoom in each time.
Right, and it
Okay.
leaves, any other significant or unexpected factor, which I think would be up to the board's discretion to decide what that was.
It's just more better than policy.
Mm-hmm.
A quick question on policies. I know we used to get like the new version and then the changes. I don't know where that came from, but is it possible to maybe do that again? I'm looking at Cody, so I don't know if that's where.
Or the changes were read. That was actually the thing that helped me the most, was when the
That way we
changes
could
were
see
read,
what was changed.
so we could see what was different.
That would be super helpful.
Good with that?
Great, thank you.
All right, well, thank you for the
Um,
work you did. Oh, sorry.
No, and I was just, the homebound instruction talks about, it requires a signed consent authorizing that people, give the director, the health director, access to the student's healthcare provider.
Mm-hmm.
That is only the director, that is not the district, correct?
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to confirm that language and that that's what that meant.
Thank you for the work on those, and we look forward to seeing them this month. Anything else you have prepared for? 7.4, we have a motion to accept the following monetary donations with sincere appreciation and to increase the budget by these amounts as recommended by the business manager and superintendent. The sports boosters, the First Baptist Church Deacons, the Hamilton Rotary Club, and the Hamilton Emerald Foundation.
Second.
Discussion?
Thank you.
All those in favor? I need a motion to approve the destruction of the ballots, blank and completed, from the 2022-2023 budget vote as recommended by the district clerk and superintendent. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to approve the 2023-2024 non-public transportation requests for the April 1 deadline as recommended by the superintendent.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? I need a motion to appoint the following for the annual school board vote budget election on Tuesday, May 16th, 2023, from noon to 8 p.m. as recommended by the superintendent.
A second?
Discussion? Thank you, everybody, doing that.
Yeah.
All those in favor?
I need a motion to appoint Michelle Jacobson as chairperson of the annual school budget vote board election on Tuesday, May 16th, 2023.
A second?
All those in favor?
We're now on to 7.8, which is discussion topic of 2023-2024 budget. I'll turn it over to Mr. Dowson and Mr. Crum, who will present the 2023-2024 budget to you.
Thank you.
Do you want me to run your slideshow?
If you'd like to, yeah, if anybody wants to follow along. just Thank you. Relatively good news. No news is good news.
we've had, I want to thank Bill, Heather, Mark, Kevin, Chris, for their hard work. This has become really almost a year-long process. And we've had lots of meetings, lots of discussion. I'd also like to thank the board members and members of the community. We've had probably 10 or 12 public meetings, including 7 public budget copies, of which we did have some members of the public attend to offer feedback throughout the way, so it was very helpful.
Chris, you want to turn the camera? Thanks.
You mean they don't want to watch? They don't want to watch Matt?
Good
Matt
idea.
needs some FaceTime.
So really, no news is good news in the sense that if what we've been presenting and what we've been projecting for the last couple of months is what we are expecting moving forward at this point as well. On the state budget front, there still is no state budget for 2023-24. It's been extended as of now through Thursday, the 20th. But we don't expect any changes to what the adopted state budget will look like as far as public school funding. The issues that are holding things up are not public school related, so that's a good thing. So I'm going to zip through this pretty quickly because it should be sort of a review, if you will. Ultimately, with this action item here, recommending the adoption of this spending plan that's put forth in front of you, as well as the property tax report card, which is required to be submitted once the adopted budget is finalized as we prepare for the vote in May. I'd like to start out with just confirming and reviewing again our tax levy calculation. It's important this year because it's a little bit different. Our allowable levy increase this year is a bit higher than it has been historically for a couple of key reasons. As you know, with the New York State tax cap, all school districts start out with the lesser of 2% or the statewide consumer price index increase over the past 12 months. That increase this year is 8%, as you can imagine. It's very high. So all districts are starting with a baseline tax levy increase of 2%. That's a number that's given to us by New York State. All school districts in New York State use that number as a baseline. The two unique indicators that are really affecting our calculation this year is one is our tax-based growth factor. This is a district-specific number that accounts for new physical additions to the tax base. We have a favorable number this year, favorable in terms of adding physical taxable properties to our tax roll this year. And we believe it's primarily the Shenango Hill housing development to our west here on the hill. That growth factor, it's a 1.0145, that's responsible for the addition of approximately $115,000 to the tax base, which is 1.4%. So with that maximum allowable increase of 3.98%, roughly 1.4% of that is because of those new additions to the tax base. The second unique indicator for our district is our capital levy exclusion. And this is the local share of the debt service for the ongoing capital project. So this is debt that was approved in December of 2018 associated with our capital project. That's the local share, so it's the debt service, principal and interest payments, net of any state aid received. Our capital levy exclusion is being increased by about $50,000 this year, which is roughly 0.35% or so of our tax levy. So if you break it down, that roughly 4%, that 3.98% tax levy increase, 2% of it is sort of your cost of living increase. That's your 2% that you start out with. 1.4% of it is new additions to the tax base, and 0.5% to 0.6% or so is the new capital levy exclusion that's coming out. So that's how we get to that number.
Chris, can you advance the slide so people that are watching online?
Oh, he's got to give me it.
All right.
Oh, sorry. We've already gone through the first one.
All right, next one. So, just finish that one. Just for a little historical perspective, you'll see the tax levy increases for the last 10 years. We have had, with the exception of 1 year in 2015-16, we've had all tax cap compliant budgets and tax levy increases.
In 2015-16, when we had a 3.73% increase, that was a tax cap override. That year really was an anomaly. Our allowable increase that year was negative. So it was a bizarre year. It was a year that we were able to pass a budget with that tax cap override. It was needed. But other than that, you can see we've been pretty consistent, you know, in the 1 to 4% range for tax levy increases, which you've heard me say, you've heard Bill say, as a team, we've been adamant that it's very important to keep those increases consistent to avoid any big spikes. Moving on, so really with the budget, there's two primary revenue sources. There's the tax levy, which is roughly $8 million of our $15 million budget, and then there's state aid, which is probably a little over $5 million. Those are the two primary revenue sources. What we anticipate in the adopted state budget, again, we have no reason to believe we won't see this, is a 3% increase in our foundation aid, which is our most basic and most significant form of operational aid for New York State. To give you some context in terms of dollars, it's roughly $110,000, that 3% increase. All districts in New York State this year, for next year, will be getting 3%. The state is following through on their promise to fully fund school districts based on the old state aid formula. We've been through this a number of times. We've been overfunded for a number of years, so thankfully they have these hold harmless provisions intact where we receive a minimal aid increase. Now that districts are fully funded based on the old formula, there are a lot of questions as to what will happen in 2024-25 that remains to be seen, how schools will be funded moving forward. Other than that, no real change in expense-driven aid formulas and its impact on our budget, other than the increase in our building aid, because we had the increase in principal and interest debt service payments for our ongoing capital projects. So with the increase in those principal interest payments, we're also seeing an increase in our building aid in New York State as well. So to look at some numbers, next please, Chris, thank you. To give you an idea of what these percentages mean, and again, keep in mind we're talking about roughly a $15 million budget. 3.98% on our tax levy is roughly $320,000. The foundation aid increase of 3% is $109,000. So what makes Hamilton unique in this region, especially compared to some of our neighbors, is we are less dependent on state aid as most of our neighbors. A lot of our neighbors, these two numbers are the inverse. So a certain percentage, an equivalent percentage increase in these two areas will yield the inverse of what you see here. So they would like to see bigger increases in foundation aid rather than in their tax levy because of the relationship between those numbers. Thankfully, for another year at least, really through September of 2024, so the first couple months of the following fiscal year, we have roughly $500,000 yet to spend from our post-COVID relief funds through federal government, being funded through New York State. That's SRSA, ARP, it's kind of in alphabet soup. So we know about the programs that we've been able to add and we've been able to maintain and retain to date. Those are all still intact through next year. And then our appropriated fund balance and use of reserves to sort of balance things out in the amount of $190,000. On the expense side of things, again, just in terms of numbers, next, yep, perfect. Like any budget, the biggest cost driver is personnel costs, especially in the school business. That's the biggest cost drivers. We're a people business. We have great people. It's important, but it is the biggest expense driver. Special programs, and this is, you know, I have to tip my cap first and foremost to Kevin, but also Mark and Heather. This is not just for Hamilton, but for all school districts this year was a major challenge. Addressing all students' needs, and there can be a heavy cost associated with that. Our team is constantly being creative, obviously with the best interest of our kids in mind, in trying to plan for not only next year but future years for kids and the impact it has on staffing here. We are going to see a bit bit of an uptick in our special programs budget next year. BOCE CTE, I put this on here because this is the second year in a row we've seen a significant increase in this line item. Last year we saw an increase, from last year to this year we saw an increase of $80,000. And this is based on our enrollment at Madison and Oneida BOCE's career and tech ed programs. We have more kids that are enrolling in those programs. We've sort of leveled off. And that number is based on a 3-year weighted average of your attendees. We've sort of leveled off up there. And then obviously, in terms of the debt service or the principal and interest payments is $180,000 on the expense side. So what does all that mean? Next, Chris, thank you. As far as what's in the budget, and this is really good news. We have really no anticipated changes in staffing or programming for next year, which is a good thing. We have no retirements anticipated, or at least that we know of at this point. And we're not planning on reducing or changing any staffing or programming for budgetary purposes. Now, I can't speak to what's going to be offered, who wants what, but from a budgetary standpoint, we're not eliminating anything. We're able to do that, again, thankfully, through the COVID relief funding that we have available to us, really through the end of next fiscal year. There'll be a couple months. For example, summer of '24, we'll be able to offer programming again in the summer, but those funds need to be expended by September of '24. So really in the '24-25 budget, we won't be able to apply that funding to year-long initiatives. The big question, I hope that next year at this time, I stand here with the same news. If I had to guess right now, I won't be. There's really not a lot of optimism for schools looking forward to 2024-25. It's not just Hamilton, it's everywhere. School officials know it, communities know it, politicians know it, everybody knows it. It's the big question. How are our schools going to maintain these programs that they've implemented using these COVID relief funds in this roughly 3-year stretch? How are we going to retain those moving forward? So that remains the big question. So again, good news for next year. We're really fully intact. We're going to be moving forward as is for next year, so that's good news. Lastly, Chris, if you would please. As far as the actionable item that's presented to you tonight, when we look at, I've broken this down into the state-required 3-part format, if you will, with a program component, administrative component, and capital component. We can get into the weeds and really get into things, but I don't think that's necessary. We're looking at a 4.13% increase in spending, putting the total budget for 23-24 at just over $15 million. Going out with a tax, which would require a tax levy increase of 3.98%, which is at our limit, but is tax cap compliant. I had a meeting with my peers from neighboring districts, business officials yesterday, and that 4.13% is right in the ballpark of where everybody's at. And a couple districts are a little bit higher if they have more debt service coming on. Some are a little bit lower based on if they have expiring debt, but I think understandably that the cost of just about everything is in that 3 to 5% range going up. So we're, again, based on the hard work of this team, from you folks, input from community, we're confident and comfortable with proposing this to you for adoption tonight and in preparation of the May vote. And if there's no questions, Chris, the last slide, I just, as a summary of what's next. You have the actual item tonight on the agenda, the corresponding property tax report card. That document has to be submitted to New York State immediately after board adoption of the budget. That has to be submitted by Monday. So if the budget's not adopted tonight, we would have to meet again prior to Monday and get that done. Jody and I have already been working on preparing our budget newsletter and budget notices that we will be sending out on or about the first week in May. We usually try to get that out to people well in advance of the budget hearing and the vote, obviously. Monday, May 8th, we will have our senior citizen breakfast. It's really not budget related, but it's something that we look forward to again now, budget season. That'll be Monday morning, the 8th, in the cafeteria. Monday, May 9th, we will have our budget hearing at 6 p.m. Please note that time of 6 o'clock. We moved that up because we have a concert that night at 7. So I promise we won't go till 7.
I'll be there.
Understood. One item, I think it's later on in the agenda, so pardon me if it gets a little redundant. May 10th.
May 9th is a Tuesday.
Yes.
You said
Tuesday, May 9th. Yep. Monday, May 8th is the breakfast.
Ah.
Sorry. Yep. Tuesday, May 9th
I was very confused.
is the budget hearing. One other event that we will have, and this was not known when we wrapped up this presentation, but on Wednesday, May 10th, we'll have a Meet the Candidates night. Is that on another item?
Yes.
Okay, so you'll talk about that in a minute. And then obviously May 16th is the vote. So it'll be here before we know it. Again, thank you team for all your hard work. Board members for your attentiveness to this. And that's where we're at. So if there's no other questions, I'll sit down and you guys can.
I'd just like to recognize Matt for his hard work. Putting together a budget in these times is never easy. And he keeps our district fiscally sound. We fiscal stress, we always rank really high, and it's a testament to his hard work and our team's hard work putting together a budget to keep all of our programs intact. So kudos to him and the hard work of our administration.
Well, now, as we think about the potential loss of programs next year.
Yeah.
Maybe if you all put together a list of which programs would be most at risk and share those with steering committees, we could start thinking about maybe ways committee to pull together to make up for some of those. And if we end up having the money, but we find a way to get it, sourced through the community, then we have free up money somewhere else too. So we have a year to figure it out. So
yeah.
Sorry.
Seeing no other discussion at this moment, I will move to the recommended action. I need a motion to adopt the 2023-2024 proposed budget with an expenditure plan not to exceed $15,023,304, which includes all projected BOE services.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Need a motion to approve the 2023-2024 property tax report card as provided and as recommended by the business manager and superintendent.
I'll second.
Discussion? All those in favor? I need a motion, recommended action, resolved, that the Hamilton Central School District, approves the 2023-2024 tentative administrative budget of the Madison Oneida BOCES of Cooperative Educational Services in the amount of $6,574,135, funded by $1,222,502 in expenses by components, plus $5,351,633 in earned interest and other miscellaneous revenues, and shall so allocate as a contingent expense it's shared of said administrative budget as proportion, in accordance with section 1950 of the New York State Education Law.
Move.
Whew, sorry and thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And more readings. Now we're on to 7.11. Madison Oneida BOCES Board of Board of Education election. I have to read these individually, so bear with me. Yeah. The Hamilton, resolved, the Hamilton Central School District Board of Education authorizes the clerk to submit and certify its ballot in the name of Richard Engelbrecht of the Madison Central School District to serve as a member of the Madison Oneida BOCES Board of Cooperative Educational Services of the sole Supervisory District of Madison and Oneida Counties for the term of July 1, 2023 through June 30th, 2026, for a seat currently held by Michelle. Marissa Falls. The ballot will be submitted to the clerk of the BOCES on April 19th. Discussion? All those in favor? Go again. Resolved, the Hamilton Central School District Board of Education authorizes the clerk to submit and certify his ballots in the name of Donna Isbell of the Morrisville Eaton Central School District to serve as a member of the Madison Oneida Board of Cooperative Educational Services and sole supervisor. Oh, that word. Why don't I like that word? Supervisory district, I'm going to get it by last one, of Madison and Oneida counties for the term July 1, 2023 through June 30th, 2026 for the seat currently held by Donna of West Eaton, New York. The ballot will be submitted to the clerk of Madison Oneida BOCES on April 19th.
Move.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye. You can do it.
Here we go. Resolved, the Hamilton Central School District Board of Education authorizes the clerk to submit and certify its ballots in the name of Mr. Patrick Barron of Vernon Sherrill District to serve as a member of the Madison Oneida Board of Cooperative Educational Services, the sole supervisory district of Madison and Oneida counties for the term of July 1, 2023 through June 30th, 2026 for the seat currently held by himself, or Vernon. The ballot will be submitted to the clerk of the Madison Oneida BOCES on April 19th.
Second.
So first part of the- All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Whew, that's a lot of reading out loud. And now, information and correspondence. And we're up for the SEL and family engagement presentation and discussion. It's your turn now.
Thank you for bringing out this.
This is going to be a group presentation, and I'll start. I'd like to answer some questions that were posed to us specifically by a community member in relation to what we're doing as far as DEI and some of our groups that we're having. So if you can go to the first slide, please, Kevin. So restorative practices. We started restorative practices on September 1st. We signed a contract with the International Institute of Restorative Practices. On September 1st, all of our faculty and staff had a 5-hour and 15-minute training by one of their staff facilitators. On October 7th, we had a follow-up for all faculty and staff. Elementary faculty had 3 hours, and secondary had 2 hours and 45 minutes, and that was based around restorative circles and the fundamentals of restorative practices. We were supposed to have a in-service on March 16th, a half day for training for a restorative leadership team. Unfortunately, our facilitator contracted COVID. We're looking at rescheduling that training for the week of June 20th. We're also looking at continuing training for the 23-24 school year with the Institute to continue our training. Next slide, please, Kevin. As far as training around LGBTQIA+, we had the Q Center, which is part of the ARC Health out of Syracuse, which offers safe spaces for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and questioning youth, their families and allies to gather, share, and receive support. So we had representatives from the Q Center provide training, an hour-and-a-half training for all faculty on staff on one of our superintendent's conference days on September 6th. On February 15th, the administrative team had a presentation from the LGBTQIA Community Mobilization Specialist and Community Outreach Coordinator for Bridges of Madison County to show us what their programs are and what they can offer for training for our team here. So we are currently planning some training specific around this area for the 2023, I should say 24, not 34, PD calendar, which will involve this group. And Chris Amon, who is one of the trainers, also serves on our inclusivity committee. So it's a good resource for us. Next slide. Okay. The Inclusivity Advisory Committee. So this group was formed in January of 2022. And the purpose of this committee is to ensure that HCS is a learning environment where students, families, and staff feel a sense of acceptance, connectedness, and validation. A place where diversity and differences are viewed as strengths. So this group came together, and you can see the members, the community members specifically asked who was on this committee. That's a representative of there's 13 members on it, including both in-house and professionals within the community. And some of the things that we have been working on is just an overview of the district image. What are our strengths? What are our weaknesses? What are our opportunities for growth in those areas? This committee also reviewed our DEI draft policy. As we discussed tonight, they made some suggestions, some edits to our policy committee. Our last meeting, which was on April 3rd, we met with our SSAC to discuss some student initiatives. And our SSAC is a student, Superintendent Students Advisory Council. So it's a group of students that I'll get through next that has really come together, and we meet weekly to discuss what's going on in the building, suggestions, what we can do better. Again, very similar to the Inclusivity Advisory Committee, to identify and have really frank discussions on where we can grow in these areas, what we're doing well and what we're not doing well. We all recognize that we have areas of improvement around inclusivity, and this group, the Inclusivity Committee, and Kevin, if you can go to our next slide, this Superintendent Student Advisory Committee is helping us grow in this area, and it's giving students voice and providing feedback to us, which I think is really powerful. So this group, we started in monthly meetings in December. We now meet every Friday during high school lunch with this group and myself. That's the members of the committee. They are representatives of the student council. They are a great voice to me and for the district. Some of the things that they've been working on and have done, they've put together inclusive secondary faculty survey form in the hopes of creating a safe learning environment and allowing teachers to better help their students. So they came up with a form that they asked teachers in the secondary to give to each of their classes on what they can do to help students feel more inclusive. What type of pronouns, do they have religious holidays that they should be aware of, that they might be fasting or maybe miss classes. So they came up with this form, and it was presented at a faculty meeting with Mr. Arquette to the secondary faculty. It was received and is now out to the faculty, and it's just creating a better dialogue between students and faculty on inclusivity. This group is also participating with Ms. Thomas and Ms. Merck in the elementary and middle school restorative circles, kind of a big brother, big sister type program to help our youngers understand and work through some issues as far as restorative circles. They're also working on science recommendations to make our school welcoming to all. We had a long discussion with our inclusivity committee about when you walk into this building, do you feel welcome? Do all feel welcome? And the answer is no. They were quite honest with that. Like, we're not representative of all when we walk into this building. So we're working on some ideas to create some signage to help create a more welcoming, inclusive environment to all. So those were the questions posed specifically that I wanted to answer by some community members. And I'm going to continue now. I'll turn it over to Mark and Heather for the next slide.
So I'll just start off. So these are just some of the workshops that, the first one is one that the majority of elementary attended. And we went to this workshop offered through Madison Oneida BOCES on March 17th. It was put on by Cornelius Minor, who also had spent some time here at Hamilton in the middle school working on curriculum. He has a fairly new book, and that's noted down below. It's called We Got This, Equity, Access, and the Quest to Be Who Our Students Need Us to Be. So the workshop really focused on different ways that, it focused on curriculum, like how we can promote student engagement and have all students engaged in the curriculum. And then it also looked at ways to look at explicit and implicit rules that are consistently affecting groups of students unequally. And it really, the focus of that workshop was really on the teachers and the administrators and faculty staff really making changes within the buildings that they see are necessary based on students' voice. So it was very powerful. It was really well received by our elementary staff, and it was exciting because I could see, changes on the Monday that we came back. I could see changes with that.
Okay, and the inclusion-based leadership we started including this year. So Dr. Rossbrook reached out to me right after graduation last year with this idea. Some work that they were doing at the Atlanta Cultural Center with older students, she wanted to adapt something that we could use here at HCS as well. So they worked over at the Atlanta Cultural Center to create this program where in small groups, students are going through different practices to work on leadership. So some of the big takeaways that they talked about were just listening to other people's experiences, just being able to have that ear and listen, having empathy for others, and making sure that even if you disagree, it's okay, as long as we're respectful to each other. And so this was a pilot year for this. It was new for them presenting it to such a young age as well. Hopefully we'll be able to sit with Dr. Rossbrook and kind of debrief on what are some changes we can make to it, how can we make it better, and then continue that relationship. Kind of lofty. It's a lot on their part to get over here. They're coming 3 days, 4 different times during the school year to make sure that we hit all 7th grade students. And that's kind of why we picked the leadership class as well, because it falls within our specials groupings. So we're guaranteed to hit all the 7th grade students. It provides a class size that kind of meets the criteria for this type of work to be happening. And so we kind of lucked out that we had that existing already, and then being able to fit it in for each marking period. So the first 10 weeks you have one group, so they're going to go through the training. The next week, 10 weeks, another group comes through and they go through the training. And as I said, it's a work in progress, and we hope to really develop it. But I think the next steps and hopes are that as students have gone through it, they start to become leaders in it and can start to lead that practice as well. So, if we can expand it to more in middle school, maybe include 6th grade, include 8th grade next year, then those students, once they get into secondary, will have the training and maybe could be some of the students that help come in with the other facilitators and guide those conversations as well. Wellness days, with that, again, huge thank you, because of a huge time commitment for Dr. Rossbrook to put that together, to bring students down, to schedule everything, because everybody's schedules are all over the place, but she really committed to it and delivered on it. So again, we'll debrief and hopefully it grows. Wellness days in the elementary and secondary. So Wellness Day in the secondary coincides with May Jam, so hopefully the weather is great that day because we have the afternoon of field day activities. But this year we do have a bunch of different groups coming in. We're still working on finishing the schedule, but Q Center is going to be here. We're going to have people dealing with social emotional health, physical, mental health. Those are kind of the tenets that we're building the Wellness Day around, based off of the New York State Health Curriculum. And so we have a lot of outside people, and inside we're going to do some neat things. One of the hopes is we're able to get some baby goats and do some yoga with that. So that's kind of the fun part of it. But then we're going to have some really serious presentations as well by experts from the community. And then the Youth Mental Health First Aid, so that's upcoming, and actually this Friday a group of us will be spending the day kind of starting that process. And so we're gonna try to work on getting this with 10th grade this year. And what it is kind of what it sounds like. So first aid. If a friend of yours is in crisis, you know, what do you do? What are the things, what are the steps that you can take to help your friend? Or if you are in crisis yourself, what are some things that you can do? So we have a full day Friday. We have a 2-hour online piece that we have to complete before that. But so a group of us will be starting that, and then hopefully beginning of May, 10th graders will be taking part in this as well. So with the 10th graders, it will be 2 class periods for 3 weeks would be the training.
During PE, right?
Yeah. Well, PE became a very logistical mess. So we found a different place.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to highlight some of the things that we do curriculum-wise in the elementary classrooms. Second Step curriculum is something that we have used long-term throughout Hamilton. Not all classes had used it in the past, but now we're really being consistent across the board. And so this is 20 lessons divided into 4 units. And you can see the focus is up here: social emotional skills like growth mindset, goal setting, emotional management, empathy, kindness, and problem solving. And then we've recently purchased the digital curriculum for that this year, so that's really kind of been revamped and revitalized again. Second Step bullying prevention curriculum, we just purchased that this year in January, and so that's an additional 4 lessons that are really focused on bullying prevention. So recognizing, reporting, and refusing bullying, bystander responsibility, and cyberbullying. And so we, Renee, myself, and Sherry Hauk, we went into all 5th grade classrooms and we did those 4 lessons in 5th grade, and then the teachers also have those materials to use throughout the other grade levels as well. Positivity Project is something that we have used long-term as well. So this is more of a character education program that is built into the classrooms. It has daily lessons that are 15 minutes a day. Teachers use them in little different ways. This year there's also a really nice family handout. So Shannon Newkirk has been sending that out to families on a weekly basis, so that can kind of prompt discussion at home between the parents and family members at home and their students as well.
So I'm Renee Merck, the SEL coordinator, and a lot of the work that I've been able to do this year is around restorative practices. So restorative practices in schools focuses on positive relationships. So building a school community with positive relationships we know is essential to a healthy school. This creates opportunities for school staff and students to build relationships and communicate in positive ways. It also it focuses on conflict resolution and provides a way of thinking about, talking about, and responding to problems by involving all the participants to discuss what happened, how it affected everyone, and what needs to happen to make things right. And finally, the social emotional skill development piece of restorative practices creates safe and productive learning spaces where students can develop those social and emotional skills that are used in school and beyond. So there are 2 categories under restorative circles. There's prevention and intervention. Under prevention, we start with community building circles. It's used in classrooms and elsewhere by teachers and staff to build relationships. Right now, I'm providing that weekly in all elementary grades and doing series in 6th grade health during the 3rd quarter, and 7th grade leadership coming up in the 4th quarter. The prevention piece also includes restorative conversation, which is used by teachers and staff to address specific issues, minor incidences, and behaviors. And then finally, under intervention, the restorative mediation piece, and that's used to address conflicts that arise between 2 to 4 participants. And Heather will talk more about that in a few minutes. Here are some thoughts on restorative practices at HCS. So Caleb, an 8th grader, said it helped to loosen the tension between my friend group in school. McKenna Jones, our 4th grade teacher, said the circles on Friday have allowed students to learn more about their classmates and become more understanding and accepting of classmates. The students have also been able to problem solve issues at recess much better on their own by using the Kelso's Choice Wheel, which is a tool that we use in class. And overall, the students enjoy our Friday circles because it allows our class to connect. Mrs. Merrill, our 5th grade teacher, said having restorative circles allows students to have a voice and reflect on choices they make throughout the day. As the year progresses, I can hear them use the language taught during these times as they interact and solve problems. Through the use of these circles, we are able to not only focus on community building, it teaches essential skills that allow students to problem solve and voice concerns in a safe, healthy, and appropriate way. And then, of course, the kids have something to say too. Hopefully this will work.
I feel like it's a chance to open up and talk about stuff with your classmates. I like to express my feelings in front of my classmates. It makes me feel more open to the idea of like friendship. We learn new things about each other. And I like that circles is how it makes you feel like you're in a safe community.
Those were unscripted too, right?
How do you feel about circles?
And I like that circles is how it makes you feel like you're in a safe community.
Yeah.
A chance to open up and talk about stuff with your class.
Trying to get to the next slide.
There we go. And a few more student thoughts on restorative circles.
I like circles because you can always get your feelings out without someone laughing at you. I think circles are important because you learn how people can problem solve in different ways. I like circles because I can talk about feelings and emotions with you.
The kids are feeling about circles.
I like circles.
Yeah, the arrow will move through the videos. It does, yeah.
So the first time I heard about restorative justice was 7 years ago, and it was just kind of this concept. So it's been just like a very positive year for me actually to dive in, starting with the training, and then actually use it with students. So I'm a little bit overly excited about it. So I'm just going to go on this side for a sec so I can kind of see. So the focus of restorative justice versus discipline is the focus is on problem solving and repairing the harm rather than punishments. And so the whole process of restorative justice has given a framework for how to do that. I think that's always something that as educators, like I've had in my heart, but then actually how do I implement that? What do I say? What's the process for doing that? This program and the training has given us that whole setup. So I went through and I use it every single day, multiple times a day. And I just was like, okay, so what have I actually used it for? And it was kind of interesting to put the slide together to just see some of the things that I have, the different types of situations. So one was taking a package of cookies out of another student's lunchbox, right? So theft or stealing. And it really just turned into an amazing conversation about why and what can we do and how do we fix that. Making an unkind comment to a friend in the cafeteria line, removing a book from the library without checking it out first, budging in front of a classmate in line, snapping colored pencils in art class, snapping them in half, calling someone a meanie, standing in the aisle on the bus, pulling on the back of a student's hood on the playground, and pushing another student while playing basketball at recess. So I just picked these so you can see the huge range of items, and all of these kind of end up in the elementary office. And so all of these things ended up becoming something very, very positive in the end of it. So I think the next slide will kind of just, so what does it actually look like? What is the, what's the process that I use? So this is the individual conference. So you have those students come in and talk. And you ask what happened, what were you thinking at the time, what have you thought about since, who has been affected by what you have done, in what way, and what do you think you need to do to make things right. So I literally have a conference forum where I just take some notes down, and these questions sound super simple, but they're really powerful because I don't do the talking, the student does the talking and thinking, and we have a real conversation about it, and by the time I get to that last little question, the student knows what they need to do. And so it's just more of a discussion rather than you did X, so now you have Y.
So these are, I know, Alan, you have said that you've used them in your workplace, and they really are very powerful. So it's, they're great for parenting, they're great, you know, for any type of relationship building. And so after you have those individual, conferences, then you have an opportunity, if need be, to bring the 2 parties or 3 parties or 4 parties back together and have that that collaborative conversation. So it's an opportunity to talk about what's happened, how each of you have been affected by the situation. You can review those individual conference questions with the students and ask, now that we have heard how all of you have been affected by what has happened, is there anything that anyone would like to say? So they have an opportunity to talk with each other about the particular situation, suggestions, like what suggestions do you have that'll help work together again without further problems? And then, of course, the focus is on what can you do now to help improve or fix this situation. So that is the discipline process that through the restorative justice lens, at least in the elementary. So I'll let you kind of explain a little bit about how you might use that.
Yeah.
You might not do snapping art pencils.
Yeah, I didn't put a list of some of these behaviors. You know, you probably have to blur out some of the language every now and then. But kind of like what Heather was saying, those best practices have been there, but it's great to have it defined and to have a system that everybody can be following. So those questions, they actually gave us a card, and I have those questions right here. So when things happen at the spur of the moment, you're ready to start those questions. And it's that big reflection piece, right, on the student's part. So sometimes it takes a little bit. First you have to get out of crisis mode or elevated emotions. But once we settle and have that conversation, it's a huge reflection piece for that student. And by doing this, though, it doesn't mean that there isn't that detention piece or there isn't that other piece that can go along with things as well when it comes down to discipline. But a lot of the focus is on that reflection piece. Who was harmed? How can we repair harm? What effects has this had on the class as a whole or others that were around? And so just having that step-by-step way to do things and keep it consistent, and in the heat of the moment remind yourself as you're the adult trying to take control of a hectic situation at times, what steps to take. So that's been very useful. And it also in the secondary, the secondary counselors play a big part with a lot of the meetings that they have with students, either individually or small group or even larger small groups, where the counseling practices have been restored for a long time. They kind of fall right in line with what we learned here with it when they came in for the training. And so they kind of help. I may have given discipline, or I may have had a conference with students with some of the reflection piece, but then, you know, if counseling is involved with students as well, they can continue that work with further conversations, further reflection, and hopefully get to a place where students are building better relationships again. And in a small school, that can be a difficult thing, because we're with each other from pre-K all the way up to 12th grade, some of us, and sometimes fixing some of the harm that has happened in the past can become difficult. So it's a great process to have.
Oh, that's me. All right. So I kind of coming in the end because these guys have talked about like what are we doing proactively? So what's happening proactively so that we are sensitive to the needs of all of our students. And so there's some really good things to define. The SEL team is kind of where I'm going to talk about. That's like, okay, so if harm has been done, so how do we remedy that? So SEL team is kind of like the health and wellness of the whole DEI. So we have a couple of different, multiple different modes in which we kind of help with those students that have had harm. So we have the behavioral intervention team, which comes together every Thursday, and that team comprises our whole SEL team. So it's our behavioral support specialists, our principals, our counselors, our social workers, our social worker, our SEL coordinator, our school psychologist, and myself. And that's on Thursdays. We talk about all students. It's an hour long where we get together and Mark and his team will go through the middle school and the high school, we'll go through the elementary. Who are students that are struggling? Why are they struggling? Is it attendance, is it behaviors? Are they withdrawn? Are they acting differently? Are their academics all of a sudden taking a nosedive? What's going on with this student? We hit every student, pre-K through 12, that is having some sort of degree of difficulty. Many times, it is because of they are marginalized, they're not feeling included in friends groups, they have anxiety or depression that may come from being, having an identity crisis or some other, something else that has to do with DEI. So that's a catch-all group for all students. And then we have our SEL team, which meets regularly on individual students. So, and this all goes through our RTI process. So tier 1 is that, okay, there's a student in my classroom that I'm not sure what's going on. They missed a bunch of days from school. They're acting differently. So the teacher may go to one of the members on the SEL team. All right, let's go to our one of our counselors, and maybe the counselor can meet with the student during lunch and just kind of figure out what's going on. So that's tier 1. We have the teachers and the students can go to anyone on the SEL team. Renee's room is open every day for anyone who wants to walk in and have a conversation at any time during the day. So that's tier 1. Tier 2 is when it hits our SEL team, okay? So we've tried some things, there's some things that are going on. It's not working. We're still seeing a student that's struggling, social and emotionally. So we have SEL team meetings, where it's our SEL team that comes to that. But in addition, we ask our teachers, and any aides that might work with that student, and sometimes parents we ask to come to those SEL team meetings. And we dig in a little bit deeper, pick some strategies, create informal or formal plans to help that particular student, and then we keep that student on our SEL team and monitor them. We'll put them back on 4 to 6 months from now, we'll come back, or 4 to 6 weeks from now, come back and do a check-in earlier if we see things that aren't working, and we'll continue to monitor that particular student. Continues to be an issue. We'll continue to come back as a team with the parents, with the teachers, with the aides. We'll develop new plans. We'll just keep working. Sometimes we have outside providers that also check in at those meetings as well too. It's kind of difficult to schedule those because they are also at work at the same time with patients. But we do have outside providers sometimes that actually come into those groups as well too. So our SEL team is kind of that reactive measure for when students are struggling, and many times it is because they're marginalized, ostracized, just feeling left out, which results sometimes in anxiety, depression, attendance issues and whatnot, and we're here to kind of support those students. That's it. I think that's everything. It is. Any questions?
Wow. A lot.
Great work. Thank you.
I think it's come up in different ways, but I think the importance of this being seen as ongoing work and not something that's there is a finish line for is really important. And also I think that along with that is the importance of recognizing the failures we've had in the past as ways that we can grow and places of growth. I think, Bill, working with your superintendent student advisory committee, and then pointing out some of those areas for growth and all the other ways that you've reached out to people and found ways for growth, I think are really important areas to work on. And I think that it's really crucial to do that hard work of having the courage to admit to our failures and then using those as a way to grow instead of just trying to push those aside or sweep those under the rug and ignore those. But seeing those things is really important. So I'm grateful for all the work that's going on and all the other people that are working with you that make these things happen.
Yeah, I think expectations are something that we'll want to consider going forward too. So what are the expectations after we do this and we continue to monitor, keep going back to and adding to it? What are our expectations? Certainly it's not going to be perfect. Certainly there are going to be times when things are said or done that don't meet our criteria and what we've defined as good students or a good program or whatnot, we are going to have, from time to time, there are going to be, continue to be things that we're not pleasant. So just kind of keep that in mind, but we are making progress, and I think we're making an environment that's much more safe and inclusive for everyone, but keeping those expectations kind of like, okay, things will happen still. It's just, how do we react to that?
These are ongoing. It's not just this year, it's going to continue for the future.
Yeah, this isn't a project you complete.
No.
No.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for all of that.
8.2 is the athletic report. Added. Any questions on the athletic report? And that is public. To look how the games this season. Here's to good weather coming in. The best time for us. As snow clouds. Administrators report. Any questions for the administrators or the public reports that were submitted? Okay.
Thank you.
Superintendent's report. I'll turn it over to Bill for anything he'd like to highlight and questions.
Yeah, I'll start. I know Mr. Roy left, but the answer I gave on our STEM initiatives was not very clear, so my apologies. We're doing much more than just robotics. Just a list of things I made. We have a coding class, we have a coding club with coding students, middle school technology class, in our 6th grade technology club. Mrs. Bozer's class infuses all sorts of STEM activities on a daily basis. We have new science kits in the elementary, we have drones, we have a laser printer, we have a 3D printer. We offer our students the engineering courses at BOCES, so we're doing much more. And my answer to Mr. Roy was not very clear, so my apologies for that, and I will follow up with him. Two other things I would like to talk about. Meet the Candidates Night, you each have a brochure. I know it's later in the agenda, but I'll make mention of that. So we have 4 candidates for 2 board seats. Patrick Longo from the New York State School Boards Association has agreed to be our moderator for Meet the Candidates Night on Tuesday, May 10th. Wednesday, May 10th, from 6 to 7:30, sorry.
It says
Tuesday?
Yes.
Yep, we'll fix that before it goes out.
Yes, thank you.
And the community will have an opportunity to submit questions ahead of time. We will review those questions, we'll make sure that they're questions that are answerable for all candidates. And Patrick Longo will also have some questions from the School Boards Association that he thinks is applicable to the appointment. Yep. So
this link doesn't work.
Right now, it does not work. Correct. Yep. This is a draft.
Oh, this isn't working.
This one's not working.
Okay,
This
got
is
it.
not working. And then a second item I'd like to draw your attention to is, based on some feedback from community members about finding information on DASA and how is that accessible. Can we make it more accessible? Can we explain the process more thoroughly? So the administrative team and I put together this DASA pamphlet that I think is really informative and really good, that we'll provide on our website and make available to our community members. It answers lots of questions about what is DASA, how to file a DASA complaint, what does the reporting process look like, what does the investigation look like, who are our DASA coordinators at both the building level and district level, what happens when the district receives a complaint, responses, results, actions, just lots of information that I think is really good, and that came from community feedback. And so we are listening, we're trying to do things better, and I think this is a step in the right direction.
And this will be another thing that the inclusivity committee will be able to view DASA complaints as much as they can.
Correct.
And
Yep.
we'll give some feedback on it.
Yep.
To the board about what's coming up, down, are there certain areas where we should be looking at?
Yes.
Anything else for Bill? Business? Steering team updates. Elementary.
We're gonna get to menu.
I can do
Okay, secondary.
secondary.
All right.
So we talked last time a lot about, we covered a few different things, but the big thing we kind of looked at was thinking about, could we come up with a list of, the academic priorities, the academic kind of skills or abilities we expect students to achieve before graduating, and then trying to map those out to where they correspond to different elements of the curriculum, so that, it'd be very easy for a parent to say, I want to make sure my kid can do this, and so I should make sure they get into the, here's the classes they can take and get that skill or have that experience. So we talked a lot about different ways you can get that and what that might look like, and I think that was an important part of it. Hearing, talked about some other initiatives, some of the diversity inclusivity initiatives going on, and some ideas around that, the ways that we could promote some professional development for teachers, what the areas that they would need, and talked about some of the wellness ideas. The students gave some of their feedback there, and then brought up a few other ideas like bring back the science fair in a way that would involve the middle school, high school, and maybe pairing with elementary school students that would be more, more of like a mentoring type of thing, where students who in the elementary school who maybe don't have the home support to do a science project would have that support through, that support would come through the school, and so it involved the high school, middle school in a way that would be more inclusive for the elementary school students as well. So those were kind of the main ideas we're looking at.
So the elementary student this time around, which was fantastic and wonderful, of course. They talked about working on continuing a food cupboard. I'm trying to remember from my notes exactly what we have. They talked about working towards doing skits and videos to support the day of play. And those sorts of things. They wanted to reintroduce the buddy bench, because the buddy bench is there but is no longer being used as the buddy bench. And so they wanted to reintroduce that and have buddy bench ambassadors and do those sorts of things. So those were the things they were bringing forward for the future. They have been working towards this comfortable cafeteria club, which is something we talked about at the beginning. And they will be moving forward with Golden Spatula Awards. So students who are using their best manners in the cafeteria will win Golden Spatula Awards. I forget exactly who decides that. Do the kids decide that?
It'll be decided by the aides that are professionals in the cafeteria.
Right. And they had their golden spatulas. They were very happy about their golden spatulas. There was some discussions about recess and some requests to redo the little basketball court out there, but they found that it turns out that turns into a major capital project and is not, perhaps. So Mr. West has been, or somebody has been taking some groups into the gym if there are kids who want to play basketball. There are also now some quiet opportunities for recess. So sometimes there are opportunities for students to go to the library if it's a child who prefers quiet time and regrouping instead of running around in chaos. And there's also a comic club in the works for doing graphic novels, and they've got a teacher on board who's working towards that. So I think those were the best parts of the meeting. We again discussed the handbook. I think the kids talked about the circles and their experiences of the circles, and really learning to listen to each other and protecting each other. I thought that was interesting. And there was some discussion that the fear of the principal has decreased dramatically because now they know what to expect, because it's the same. Because it's a consistent series of questions and a consistent response, that sort of stress of going to the principal's office has actually decreased, which is wonderful. And again, revisiting math programs, transitioning to those new science kits. Some discussions about Parent Square and some parent frustrations with Parent Square. Parents with kids in multiple schools The elementary school and then the middle school, high school, there's some issues along that. And some expression of a wish to be able to actually have two-way communication with the teachers through Parent Square. And then the fact that there are some that are using Parent Square and Seesaw and email, and so that there are sort of multiple. So there were some discussions around that and some interest in troubleshooting that. And then again, the science fair was discussed in ways to make it a little more equitable and a little more enjoyable for everybody, and some different opportunities that might be present. So, there's some, I think, other stuff there.
Great.
Well, good day.
For both of you. Thank you. For both committees, not for the.
I just took notes. Smile and wave.
The Animal Foundation met, I missed their meeting, I was sick, but they're really, their focus currently is the all-class reunions that have taken over. The one thing that they're working on adding is tours of Hamilton Central, and there's some Honor Society kids that will give those tours during a block of time during the all-class reunion. So they're working on that and fundraising, because that's what they do. That's their job. Our mission is to fundraise, so there's that. Knowledge sharing?
I have just a couple of quick things for advocacy. Due to the extended budget negotiations, NISBA has created a call to action for tomorrow. It's a call to action day for universal school meals. So they're asking all board members, administrators, things like that, to reach out to your assemblymen, senators, things like that, asking them to prioritize the inclusion of free school meals in the state budget. So anybody that can do that tomorrow, that's great. And then the other thing, all board members should have received the 2023 resolutions toolkit from NISBA. So I don't know, hopefully everyone here took the survey. But so the survey results are in there, what's important to our constituencies, and then we can look over the resolutions. If we want to create one ourselves and propose it, we can do that. So if everyone maybe can take a look at that, and we'll discuss that in the future if we want to move forward with anything. And we don't have to go off the survey, we can create something on our own if we want that to be an effort as well.
And also part of that is the DEI committee, we're gonna be discussing potential resolutions as a committee. Those have to be submitted by districts, or we could bring some ideas to that group, and districts can co-sponsor a bill, so if we, something coming from a rural school and a downstate school, something might be a really strong initiative to pass. So I was thinking about something related to funding for special needs, with those outside services, those other things. There's already stuff about raising the proceeds outside services that gets on there every year, but maybe something along those lines. I asked Bill and his team to think about anything else. We might be at some point too. And we have till maybe till they'll pass those, so to submit those. And they, from what I heard, most of them have it.
Yeah, July 14th.
Most of them come around July 4th.
Yeah, last year I know they were all piling and blessing it.
Thank you both. Bill?
Yeah, we continue with the capital project with the flooring issue in the locker room. We got another meeting tomorrow morning that we're working through to try to come up with some sort of resolution to address that.
Thank you.
So the board election and vote, we've given some of this information already, but to make sure that it's spelled out here, May 9th is the public hearing for the budget. It starts at 6 p.m. and it will be in this room. May 10th is Meet the Candidates Night. It will be at 6 p.m. and that will be in the auditorium. There is a Google form that will be posted to our website for submission of questions for the candidates. So please feel free to submit questions. May 16th is the budget vote and school board elections. It starts at noon, ends at 8 p.m., and that will be held in the bus garage. That brings us to the participation section. Please remember the time frame and come forward and state your name if you would, if you'd like to participate.
Anything online? Nothing online.
Well, there is
Oh.
That brings us to the executive session. There will be no action taking place after executive session, which means we will not come back onto the YouTube channel. So I just wanted you to know that. I need a motion to adjourn to executive session where we will discuss the employment history of particular individuals, a proposed pending or current litigation, and placement of a student with special needs.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We will take a 5 minute.
Yes, please.